Did you know Lululemon's iconic Flow Y bra also comes in tank top styles and even a dress? Now in new fun summer colors, Flow Y brings a racerback shape to streamline styles you can wear anywhere. Our buttery soft Nulu fabric feels nearly weightless, with sweat-wicking 4-way stretch for comfort you'll want to keep on after practice. Flow freely, on and off the mat with light support and refined design. Shop Flow Y now at lululemon.com.
This is going to be an hour-long video on some of the most major conspiracy theories that are out there. So we're going to do 10 to 15 minutes on each of the major ones. So buckle in, get comfortable, get ready. Save this video for later so you can watch it while you're getting ready for work or taking a big long dump, either one, okay? So we're going to have a fun little twist tie into this, but don't let it scare you away, all right? And we're going to tie this into animes. And what I mean by that is there are several majorly popular animes that talk about major conspiracy theories in their own storyline. And it overlaps with our conspiracy theories perfectly fine. So if you don't like anime, it's okay. I'm just going to briefly talk about the ones that tie into these major theories. And the first one is the fact that we might be inside of an ice wall and we are actually just living on part of the planet that exists around us. And Antarctica is not a continent that lives way down below us, but it's actually an ice wall that goes all the way around what we have, and we've been lied to for a really long time. What that ties back into is an anime. There's two of them, actually. The first one is Attack on Titan. So Attack on Titan, and spoiler warnings, getting ready for you, okay? Attack on Titan, this whole show, you're watching these people that are stuck inside of these city walls, and there's these literal giant monsters that will eat them. And if they ever go outside of the city walls, they're constantly getting chased by these giant monsters and eaten by them. So finally, they get past the giant monsters, and they find that they run into the ocean. And then they sail across the ocean and find out that the rest of the world has lived completely normal, and they, because their ancestors were being punished for a crime, were essentially sent to that island to live on, and then they inhabited the island with monsters to keep them from ever getting off the island. And it's been that way for centuries. And none of them were old enough to remember that happening, obviously, and the story just got lost over time. There is a huge theory that we are prisoners inside of our own little ice wall circle, and then that UFOs that you see is actually like our wardens just kind of coming to check on us every once in a while. So the theory of this goes that the ice wall exists, and we are what's called Middle Earth, kind of like Lord of the Rings, Middle Earth. And outside of Middle Earth, outside of the ice ring, there are other continents, there's other countries, there's all this different stuff going on. Admiral Byrd did an expedition down to Antarctica, and this was one of the, the generals of the military, one of the leaders of the military. I don't know why I said that. Admiral Byrd, Admiral, whatever his rank was. He took a whole expedition down there, and he literally got deemed insane and was cast out and made to be like this crazy person because he wrote about what he saw when he went to Antarctica. And he described on the other side of Antarctica was this vast openness that he could not describe because there was this massive void, and there was crafts coming in and out of the void. He described there was warm air coming off of it. Just go down that rabbit hole on your own. That's what this video is for. This video is to introduce you into tons of rabbit holes, but then for my anime lovers and fans, or to turn people onto animes, I'm throwing those in there on how they relate to actual conspiracies. So there's a lot of people that believe that Antarctica is not what it's said to be because you are not allowed to go there on your own free willing. And people always jump at me. You can buy expeditions to Antarctica. Yeah, it's a controlled expedition where they take you to a very specific spot. It's a guide who does it. And that's it. You're touching you're grazing the outer skirt of a massive ice wall that we're talking about here that could go on for no one knows how far. We can't agree on anything. All of our countries that are at odds, China, United States, Russia, we're always at odds with each other. But yet we can all agree, hey, legally do not let your citizens go to Antarctica. There is not a country in the world where this rule does not apply. You can't go. You can't do it. They will shoot your boat out of the water. If you take your boat close enough to Antarctica to figure this out for yourself, patrol boats will come up from multiple different nations and say, turn around now, or we're going to blow your boat out of this water. That's how serious they are about it. Because to me, if you choose to go down there, you're not going to endanger anyone but yourself. Why not let you do that? Just let you do it. And a lot of people say, oh, it's for your own protection, it's for your own safety. No, it's not. No, it's not. They let people climb Mount Everest every day. You know how many people die climbing Mount Everest every year? Tons die every year climbing Mount Everest. So if they would exclude us from just doing things that are really unsafe, they would exclude a lot of stuff. They would exclude driving your car. You know, if you wanted to go to Antarctica, you should be legally allowed to go. If there's truly nothing there for us to find, if there's no secrets to hide, Antarctica is so rich in minerals. It has like what they call the blood waterfalls, because the waterfalls look like they're bleeding because minerals are spilling out of the side of them. But no country wants that. No country's going to claim that. We've claimed a lot of stuff for a whole lot less. To me, they are hiding something there. And Attack on Titan, I think, does a great job. That anime does a great job of putting the what if out there, because its own people no longer knew that they were prisoners and captives because they had lived there for so long. What if our heads of power are either planted here from the other side? Because weirdly enough, like all of our presidents are all related to each other. Literally, George Bush, Barack Obama, all those guys, they're all cousins. They're all related somehow. What if they're planted here to be our world leaders? What if they're not planted here to be our world leaders, but what if the world leaders are given the knowledge of this deal, of this treaty, like, hey, you stay on your side of the wall or we'll eradicate you. You are essentially prisoners, stay on your side. Who knows? I don't, if this other civilization is so advanced, that could be what we talked about with Atlantis. You know, a long time ago, they used to say that we traded with Atlantis. You know, maybe we got cut off from the trade routes. They're like, okay, no, we were trying to be nice and trade with you, because in olden days, they described Atlantis of being very advanced, very sophisticated, wearing clothes that no one else knew about. They might have, at some point, tried to open the route back up and trade with us, and they're like, no, you know what? That's not worth it. You guys are savages, essentially. Who knows? The other side of this conspiracy is that on the other side of this ice wall is that it's things that are not like us. And it might be the reason why sometimes we see cryptids. It might be the reason why sometimes we see demons. It's just things we don't understand. And the other side of the ice wall is what would be a good throwback to the anime The Promised Neverland. If you've never watched The Promised Neverland, it's essentially they are a human farm. Spoiler warning. They think they're growing up, living a normal life, and then they find out that when they get shipped out, they're not getting shipped out to where they think they're going. They're getting shipped out to the other side of the half of the split of the Earth, which would be the ice wall, and they are literally being eaten because Earth as they knew it, life as they knew it, they were a human farm. They were a human farm, and we're all essentially being human farms, and they didn't know that. Now, The Promised Neverland has some different twists to it. If you want to watch it, I'm not going to say much more about that. But a lot of people have said this theory of the ice wall might be literally like on Game of Thrones or something, where there is another race on the other side and they do not like us, and maybe in the past we didn't like them, and both the powers that be on both sides said, I'll stay on my side, you'll stay on your side. We're not prisoners like the theory of Indigo, but this theory would point to, maybe there was some great conflict and the ice wall is just a natural barrier where they said, hey, you have that side, I'll have this side over here. This gets all into the flat earth and the round earth theory. I don't want to go down that hole today. If you look at our podcast, we did an hour-long video on this. And if you're just now realizing this, we do have a podcast. So if you're on Facebook or TikTok and you don't want to just have your phone open the whole time for this video and you just want to listen to it in passing, go to Spotify. It's called Matt from Nomads. On YouTube, it's called Nomads Animal Reserve. On Apple Podcast, it's also called Matt from Nomads. So MATT from Nomads or Nomads Animal Reserve. We're going to go ahead and jump into the second conspiracy theory now. And this anime covers pretty much every major conspiracy theory you could ever think of and throws it into, when I watch this anime, I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm pretty sure that's exactly what's happening on our planet, with our government, with our civilizations right now. And that's One Piece. One Piece is the goat of all animes. I have a One Piece tattoo right here on my bicep. I have one on my calf. I love One Piece. And they talk about every type of conspiracy you can think of, but they format it to their story of their show. But every time I see these conspiracies in the show pop up, I'm like, oh, yeah, that definitely seems like what we're doing right now. And the first one is that they get into is chemtrails. You talk about the airplanes that are flying over, and there's always these trails behind them, and people say that's not natural, and those are like chemtrails, and they're dropping chemicals down on us, or they're manipulating the weather. And what's crazy is in the United States, we're like, there's no weather manipulation going on in the world. But China, literally openly admits to having weather manipulation stations and bases. And they're like, yeah, we can make it rain. We want to make it rain. We can make it rain where we want it to rain. We can avoid floods. We can do all this weather manipulation stuff to an extent. They can't control it all, but they can. influence the weather, I should say. But in the United States, we're like, that technology doesn't exist. It's like, yeah, stop, bro. Just stop. It does exist. We know it does. Like, other countries are cool with openly admitting it. Let's us admit that as well. And so there's a whole arc, and it's the Alabasta arc in One Piece. And this nation is going into a civil war because half the nation is thriving and having water, and the other half of the civilization, it is a drought, turning everything into a desert. And everybody's starving to death because the crops aren't growing, no one can get water. And come to find out, it is because there is weather manipulation going on, and they're making it rain over here. But what happens is when they make it rain over here, it steals all the rain clouds from the rest of the area, and so the rest of the area goes to this drought. Now, you might have forgot I was talking about an anime for a minute and thought I was talking about real life. So, in the show, it literally causes a civil war because not the government was doing this on purpose, but a third-party terrorist group was doing this. So that way there would be a civil war so they could take advantage of selling weapons. Yeah, that doesn't sound like a made-up TV show, right? That sounds like some real stuff we would see and real stuff that, like, I feel like organizations would do and could do. And it was a really cool tie-in back to, like, what I actually think with the weather manipulation stuff. A lot of people say that this chemtrail stuff can cause anything from weather manipulation to cancer in individuals. Because we know that our population needs to go down. And this one really isn't an anime, but this is like the Avengers Endgame with Thanos. How it makes half the people die. We know it as a planet. Like, our world leaders have talked about it before. And it's something they don't like to talk about a lot. But we know that our planet cannot sustain this amount of people forever. Like, it's not something that's up for debate. We cannot sustain it living this lifestyle this way. It can't happen. Luckily, the United States, our population keeps decreasing year after year. For like the past 10 years, our population has gone down. So we're going to see this problem kind of evade eventually. It's sad the reason why the population number is going down in the United States is because the cost of living is so high. People can't afford to have more kids now. But other countries are still seeing an increase in population. The United States is not one of those. A lot of people are wondering why there's so many open jobs and stuff like at fast food places and entry-level places. And it's because starting about 10 to 15 years ago, less kids are being born. So a lot of those entry-level jobs that are held by teenagers, there's not as many of them in the world right now. Elon Musk, whether you like him or not, does a really cool talk about this. If you want to watch his talk about the depopulation in the world and how it's a good thing that we need, but at the same time, it's going to severely hurt the world economy when this fully happens, when all these people that weren't born should have been at the age of being consumers and buying stuff. Prices are going to go up because less people are buying each product, so the companies are used to making a certain amount of money, and they're going to want to keep making that amount of money. So if they're selling a third less, they're going to make everything cost a third more, just so they can get the same income. Anyhow, that's a rabbit hole for a different day. So moving forward into the next topic here is going back to One Piece, is the Void Century. The Void Century is the major conspiracy in One Piece. That's what the whole show literally revolves around. In fact, if you guys don't know what One Piece is about, it's about pirates, and now it's about like gods. It's no longer about pirates. It's essentially literally about gods. Like, that's how crazy the show has gotten. It's got like almost 1,200 episodes at this point, if it hasn't already crossed 1,200. Anyhow, the Void Century. The whole show revolves around, there was a guy that was a super big rebellion, and he leads this big rebellion against the world government. And it's called the world government because I feel like that's what our governments are going to in real life, if it already hasn't, kind of behind the scenes, kind of behind the shadows there. So the world government gets together and they all join forces to eliminate this dude because essentially he's wanting everybody to be free and to live a free lifestyle. The world government needs the consumerism. They need the machine to keep turning the way they want it to turn. They want their control. They want all their money. They don't want things to be shared evenly. They want for them to own 99% of the world's economy, which I feel like is what we are living in right now. So what they do is they go to war with this guy, and then they erase all evidence of him from history and everything he had influence on. So it's called the Void Century because they quite literally erase 100 years of history. Now, we couldn't get away with that, could we? Yeah, we actually did it once. So a lot of people have a debate on how much of history was erased and skipped. But we know that the Library of Alexandria was burnt down. There are so many civilizations and cultures and beliefs and religions that we will never have any trace of proof of anymore. because the Library of Alexandria was burnt down. And then now people are saying that they actually don't even know if the Library of Alexandria existed or if it was a myth. I swear to God, go look that up right now. People are saying now that they actually don't know if that was real or not. It might have just been a story that the Romans told. So now we don't even know if something existed that had stuff that didn't exist or not. We don't know. We don't know. More than that, a lot of people debate on how much of the history was erased or skipped with the Gregorian calendar. Supposedly, it was only like 15 days. I call bullshit. So, if you guys didn't know it, there was a pope and there was a king. Off the top of my head, I can't remember their names. Go look it up. It won't be hard to find. There was a pope and a king that wanted to be in charge of the church and of the country whenever the world turned 1000 AD. But it was only like in the 850 something or whatever. So they essentially had to skip 150 years of history. So what they did is they just made a decree and they said, hey, guys, later this week, we're going to officially announce that it is 1000 AD. And the way they spun it back then is that there was mistakes made in early human civilization calendars. And actually, we should already be at 1000 AD. Sorry, there was mistakes that were made. So a king and a pope lied about history to change the date that it was at that moment. That is not a myth or a conspiracy. We know for sure they did this. There's debate on how far they skipped. Some people say 15 days. Some people say as many as 212 years. So there is a lot of debate on how much time they skipped because we will truly never know. And we'll also kind of never know if they were right about time not being recorded correctly because, like I said, a lot of stuff got lost in history. So maybe they were right and maybe they didn't skip anything. But either way, it makes our timelines not match up right. So there's a lot of history that could have got lost in the sauce there. The next thing that's the big conspiracy about One Piece is what I think is happening right now. And we're living in it right now, and we're actually living after it happened. And I think that human civilization has been reset multiple times. And I think it happens through great floods. If you're a believer in the Bible, which I believe there's a God, just so we're on the same page here. Now, my beliefs are very weird that other people don't share with me. Like, I don't think there's just one God. I think there's a bunch of them. And I think there's one God that's in charge of all of them, or at least superior to the rest of them. But I think they exist. And so I think that a lot of religion's texts are not wrong. I think a lot of them are correct. And it's just different gods amongst it. That's a whole thing for another day. Anyhow, I've done videos on that before as well. Anyhow, in the Bible, it tells us there's a great flood. We can look and figure out we can look in geology and find that in the Middle East, there was a great flood that would have covered all the Middle East. Other parts of the world have proofs of great floods happening at the exact same time. So in One Piece, I don't want to spoil anything for you. They're talking about the world government that erased that history is also hiding the fact that there is a great flood happening as we know it. And no one notices it, but the world is slowly sinking. And we know that in real life right now, that we know that the sea level is slowly rising. Because the way they view it is that's somebody else's in the future's problem. That's not our problem. Why cause panic right now when it's something that no one can change, no one can avoid it, etc. Because whether you believe in global warming or not, the fact is the world has flooded and unflooded multiple times on its own, with or without mankind. I don't think it's anything new. I think that naturally we go through these waves of resetting. And I think that we're probably on like the 6th or 7th reset at this moment right now. Because it doesn't make sense to me how we have lost civilizations in places where there's never not been that civilization. Think about it. I want you to think really hard about this because I mean it. In ancient Egypt, why do we have to excavate ancient Egypt? There's never not been Egyptians. There's never not been. Like the pyramids of Giza, there's a town right there. There's never not been a town there. So why did everything get buried and covered up if there's people there the whole time? Like I live in a town called Seminole, Oklahoma. I'm not worried that someday that me and the boys got to get out and unbury our town that we live in because we would have kind of noticed it getting buried as we were living in it. It doesn't make sense. And every civilization is this way. Every ancient civilization has to get excavated. Why the hell weren't they just already still there? The Egyptians literally never, ever, ever have the Egyptians left. And they have to re-excavate their shit like all the time apparently. I think it's because we got demolished. I think we got wiped out and all of Earth had to reset. And so what we're excavating and just finding didn't belong to the ancient Egyptians that we know of. I think it belonged to a whole other culture and civilization that got wiped out and eradicated. And that theory is called the theory of Tartaria, is that Earth has been reset. Because we can find proof, or what I think is proof, that this actually happened pretty recently in our timeline. TikTok, I'm sorry, it's not proof. It's all theory. TikTok is so happy to just take my stuff down all the time over talking about theories. This is theories. AI algorithm that is listening. I'm not saying anything this is true. I'm not saying anything this is 100% accurate. I'm saying this is theories. TikTok algorithm robot listener. All right. So, and Facebook is cool with everything. Facebook ain't never taken one of my videos down ever. So, anyhow, moving forward. There is things that, like, in the recent, like, last 200 and 300 years that we find covered in mud, and there was a great mud flood. And we know that the great mud flood happened. It's not up for debate. It happened. And it seems to have happened almost all over the entire world. And you'll see them digging up these buildings that only look a couple hundred years old, but they've got 10 feet of them, buried under mud. And it'll be like, then they'll find like a whole town. And I'm like, why was that buried so quickly? Like, I don't think that, we would have heard about this if it happened in the last 200 or 300 years. And there's a big theory that they wanted to reset human history so they could keep control, and that maybe they didn't want to scare us into panicking us to knowing that these cataclysmic events could happen at any time without us knowing. Anyhow, that's a very big deep dive. If you are looking for the huge deep dive on specifically that, I have done it on Spotify before. It's the Tartaria conspiracy theory that lasts an hour. And I've done a video about it on Facebook that was like 20 minutes about just that subject. I'm not going to get into it all here. TikTok has removed those 2 videos because anytime I mention Tartaria, the video gets immediately flagged. And that just, to me, further proves that there is something to it. Because I never had a problem with TikTok flagging my videos before the United States government took over for TikTok. Never had a problem with it. Since they have taken over, my TikTok pay is diminished to almost nothing, even though we get millions of views every week. It's diminished to almost nothing. We got paid $34 last week from TikTok for 5 million views. 5 million views paid me $34. On Facebook, that would have paid like $5,000. It's crazy how TikTok does this. And I think it's because of what we talk about. Anyhow, moving forward, I got off on a tangent. I just hate on some TikTok a lot here lately. So, like I said, One Piece talks about all of these things. Tartaria, the mud flood, the resets, all this stuff. They talk about, things that are kind of like Atlantis, or these great civilizations that are now underwater. One Piece has, there's so many, and I'm sure I'm forgetting about even more of them. Just take a look on that on your own, because there's countless theories there, and they're all gold. Now, the next one is possibly my favorite one, and it's the one that I'm coming to believe the most about our reality around us. And it's the fact that we are all living in a computer simulation that is so real that we cannot distinguish it from reality, because it itself is reality. And what I'm talking about, anime relation, is Sword Art Online, specifically Season 3. I know that Sword Art Online Season 1 and 2 have nothing to do with what I'm about to talk about. In Season 3, it is wildly different. So if you don't want spoilers, here it comes. In Season 3 Sword Art Online, these people realize that they are actually not alive, and they're in a computer simulation. You see the outside scientists that are working on this computer simulation, and for the people that are stuck inside of the game, time seems to move for them like it moves for us. It seems like nothing is sped up. It seems like completely normal. But on the outside, this computer simulation is moving just like years a second. Just like, I mean, they have seen the rise of humanity and civilizations and technology and all this stuff in just a matter of days from the scientist's point of view. And the people that are in the game do not know that they're in a game. They really think they are truly alive and real, because they have AI that is indistinguishable from fake. Okay, if they get cut, they bleed, they feel sadness, they feel emotions, all the above. They've had children, they were born, and their parents obviously didn't, none of them knew, okay? Now, in the show, they put a person from the real world into the simulation to go alongside of them. When he goes into the simulation, he feels like he has been there for like 15 to 20 years, because he gets literally born into the civilization and lives an entire life, to the point he actually forgets about his real life and the outside world. The people on the outside, though, it's only been like 3 minutes for them. Like, it's been like nothing. And he's already lived like 15, 20 years. And the reason why they do this in the show is to run mock simulations of the way real things could happen in the world. Giant earthquakes, civil unrest and warfare, plagues. They want to essentially run simulations on those scenarios in a fake controlled environment, so they can watch and see what would happen to our world, the real world, what they could do to avoid these things. How is the public going to react when these things happen? And then as they're doing this, they're realizing, like, oh shit, like, what if we're actually in a simulation of a simulation or something, you know, and like we're conducting a simulation inside of another simulation, and then it just kind of mind screws everybody. And there is so many theories out there that say that that's actually what we're in right now, and that God, our creator, is just the guy who hooked in the game, and he created the game that we're playing right now. And I think both could be true at the same time. I really do. It's a weird thing to think about. There's a lot of stuff like the double slit experiment. There's a lot of stuff about how this world doesn't truly make sense with outer space and everything else that goes with it, and trying to think about the beginning of time and where did time start. And everybody always wants to jump to, oh, well, God started time, or the Big Bang started time. Okay, well, both could be true and both could be false, because everybody wants to jump on the Big Bang theory. Two pieces of matter hit each other, exploded, and created the universe. Well, science itself says that matter cannot be created nor destroyed. So those two pieces of matter that hit each other had to have come from somewhere. Science says that. So science is either wrong about the Big Bang, or they're wrong about matter cannot be created or destroyed out of nothingness. One of the two is wrong. We know that for a fact about our own scientific knowledge, is that all science is true if you take for granted that one miracle. Okay, well, if they can say one miracle happened, why can't God happen? Or why can't other, religious things happen? Right? That's why I'm saying I feel like both could be true. I also feel like both could be false. I really think that if you have a closed mind on this, you're an idiot. Okay, there's no way that you can say that you definitely know one way or the other. There's no way to do that. You can have faith. Having faith doesn't mean you're right. It just means you believe in it. And no one's hating on you for that. Believe whatever you want to. All right? Don't hate on other people for their beliefs, though, either. So if somebody isn't religious, don't hate on them. If somebody is religious, don't hate on them. Okay, just chill out. We're all here for a very short amount of time. Why hate while we're here? And who knows? We might be here for a long time. We might redo this cycle over and over again. That theory exists too. So who knows? I don't know what the hell I'm talking about. But that show has a really cool tie-in, because you'll see it from their point of view of how they truly believe that, like in this simulation, they come up with their own religions. And what's funny is the people on the outside watching the simulations, like, where do they come up with this stuff? Like they just come up with this stuff like out of nowhere, like on their moral compasses or their cultural beliefs or their traditions or their religious beliefs. It's just funny to watch from their point of view. In a matter of seconds, they see people like, come to be on Earth, and all of a sudden they just start making customs and stuff like out of thin air. And like I said, that's the whole point of that show, is they're wanting to see, can we control things? Can we manipulate things? Can we insert propaganda? They're just trying to do mock versions of real life. Oh my gosh, I keep saying that this one's my next favorite theory. This is my favorite theory. Okay, all these theories are like my favorite ones. That's why I included them on this list. The anime it ties into is Naruto, so spoilers ahead. And it's the theory that we are all aliens on this planet. That some alien race actually seeded us here on this planet, and that's why we are not like anything else. Because like if you think about our intelligence level and our level of understanding compared to literally everything else on this planet is so far ahead that we truly do not even resemble anything else on this planet. We use way more advanced tools. We can come up with the freaking internet. Like if you try to think about how the internet works, it will hurt your head. I know there's a whole theory out there that we actually didn't come up with the internet, that we discovered it. That's a whole nother theory. But anyhow, we are so far ahead. Like we have cars, we have roads, we have airplanes, for, Christ's sake. Like we have so many things that don't even make sense. Like imagine like a gorilla trying to come up with how cell phones work. Like it's not going to happen. Like I just used probably the most intelligently advanced animal on this planet, and even it seems like a complete moron compared to what we can do, right? And there's a reason why that we might be this way. And the theory is that we are an alien that was either an asteroid hit this planet that killed the dinosaurs and our DNA came off of it. There's theories that alien races out there, their planets were dying and they came here and they started humankind, and then just over time we forgot that we came from another planet, because everybody, the stories over time, people die off, people begin to believe it's fairy tales, even though some like Native American beliefs and some like indigenous cultures do say that we were fathered here by star people, and that the root of our civilization comes from the stars. There's literally indigenous people that tell that story to their kids still, and every other culture in the world goes, well, that's fake. Why? Why? They'll tell you, like indigenous people will be like, oh, this is how you grow crops here. This is our secrets to hunting and everything. And everybody's like, oh, that's true. And then they're like, oh, we came from the sky. They're like, well, that's not true. It's like we like to pick and choose things from our history that fits the narrative of what we want to believe. Like we hear what we want to hear. It's like your pissed off girlfriend that, you tell her a whole story and she just heard what she wanted to hear out of the story and is going to make a judgment one way or the other, right? Like that's That's what that's how we live our life as far as scientists and historians are concerned. By the way, I skipped one Piece earlier, and it's that the winners of war rewrite history based upon their narratives. So, like, do you really think in history the good guys have always won every major war ever? Do you really believe that? Do you really believe that in history every single time the good guys win? No. The bad guys have won a bunch in history. In fact, the bad guys probably have won more because they're more ruthless. And they write the history to justify their actions, okay? Alexander the Great. In history, we even said the Great. You talking about Alexander the Cruel that killed thousands and thousands and thousands of innocent people? Like, what are you talking about here? Like, right? You know, why? Why do we pretend like some people are amazing, some people aren't? You know, it's crazy. That's the one I forgot on the One Piece thing. Because you'll literally see in the anime that they'll, like, if somebody is close to finding out the truth about the world's history, they'll obliterate that place and then label them war criminals. It's what happens in the show. I think that's what happens in real life. Okay, I think there's a reason why so many geniuses get labeled crazy, is because they're just closer to finding out the truth than everybody else. Kind of like the guy who came up with a water car and then mysteriously died right after. Okay, don't think that was a coincidence. So getting back to Naruto. In Naruto, if you haven't watched Naruto all the way through yet, you'll find out that that all people on Earth, all the ninjas on the show, were once aliens, and they came here and had babies, and they just kept living here. And there was a whole other civilization somewhere else in the stars. Like, the star people theory is wild. The ancient alien theory is wild. Like, and there's so much to it. I think there is a lot of embellishment in it. And I think there's a lot of made up stuff. I think there's a lot of truth to it. I think there's a lot of stuff in there that points to things that we're not ready to talk about, that we're not ready to accept for religious beliefs, for political beliefs, whatever. Like, could you imagine if our government came out right now and they confirmed, like, oh shit, like, you know, we were, like, our DNA does not match this planet, like, we're not from here. If they came out and said that right now, literally every religious factor on the world, whether it's Buddhist or Christians or Catholics, they would all be up in arms, ready to throw hands in another crusade. You can't tell me otherwise. We know that's exactly what would happen, and there'd be so much civil unrest, there'd be so much, like, just crazy stuff. You know, it would. So I think when there's big culturally and traditionally defining moments, that if they ever found out in history, I think they would all collectively go, yeah, we probably shouldn't confirm that. And I think that's why there's so many conspiracies out there today, because in this day and age of technology, we can all share info really fast. We all have cell phones where we can video things in real time. So, like, right now, somebody could see something in Australia, and I could see it in a minute from now, 30 seconds from now, with the power of the internet. And I truly think that's why there's so many conspiracy theories out there, is the government doesn't want to confirm a whole slew of stuff. So these conspiracy theories happen really, really fast because people can see it for themselves. And I think that's why they created AI. I truly believe that all this AI imaging and AI video stuff was truly created for the sole purpose of being able to distort reality from fiction. Because right now, I can see a video uploaded from Australia that depicts an alien, you know, mooning us through the window of the spacecraft as it drives by. And now, for the end of time, no one will be able to definitively say, yep, E.T. just showed me his butt cheeks, or that was an AI video. Because now that AI is out there, there will be a seed of doubt in every controversial video that was ever released from here going forward. Every single time. There will be nothing that you can say is 100% positive to being real unless you were there yourself and you saw it in person. And even then, they have these deep fake masks that have came out where it's so hard to distinguish if that's actually who you're seeing or not. If you haven't seen these deep fake masks, go down that rabbit hole. It is scary how accurate they can look like someone else. It's really weird. So, getting back on topic here. Are we aliens that were seeded here from another planet that was either dying out, or they were on the run, or it's just an accident? Like, you know, imagine some aliens on a honeymoon. They came to Earth, got their alien groove on, had some babies, left them behind. Who knows? Maybe the original humans that got left here were prisoners, kind of like what we talked about earlier with the whole ice wall thing, and you know, the whole Attack on Titan, being prisoners sent to an island, or what we ourselves have done. Did you know that's how Australia started? Australia, the country, started because the UK, the Europeans, took their prisoners and dropped them off there. That is how Australia, modern culture started. I know there's indigenous people in Australia already, but I'm talking about the modern culture that exists in Australia was founded by prisoners that were dropped off there. They almost started to forget in Australian history that they were dropped off prisoners. They almost did. You can look this up and see the timeline. They actually started making like a different story on how they got there, because when they started having kids, they didn't want to tell their kids, hey kid, you're born here in this hellhole because we were criminals. They didn't want to start admitting that to their own children, so they started making stories up. That should show you right there how quickly we can change our own history. Like one generation damn near was all it took to change the stories of like how we got here. So like I said, what if there was aliens that got, dropped off here because they were the outcast of their cultures, and this is what happened? We don't know that. We'll never know that. Literally, indigenous people tell us that right now, that we come from the stars, and we all don't believe them. Now, the last one is a show that ties in with a conspiracy theory that I think we are seeing evolve happening right now. It just hasn't happened yet. And it's called Psychopaths. If you haven't seen Psychopaths, it's set about 100 years in the future from where we're living at right now. And it's that AI has gotten so good that it can do brain scans, and it can detect the likelihood and the patterns of criminals, and it can detect the likelihood that other people will be criminals in the future. So like literally a person can be, 20 years old. They've never committed a crime before. They get this brain scan that's like a requirement. They have to get brain scans every so often or whatever. I can't remember exactly how the show works with the timing on these scans. But they get brain scans. And if the brain scan shows a certain probability or higher that they will commit a crime, then they automatically get punished right then and have to go to rehab, like jail. Or if it's a serious high number, then they get murdered right. They literally just kill them before they can even commit a crime. This is one of the reasons why a lot of studies have been halted. If you want to look it up for yourself in real life, we have proven, we can prove that you can take a serial killer's brain and look at other serial killers' brains, and there's patterns we can see in their brains. There's literally, the different cortexes and lobes will be matched up the same. Almost all serial killer brains look the same. Does that mean if your brain looks like that, you're going to commit a crime? No. Does it mean that you have a heightened chance of being a criminal? Yeah. And we can actually detect it as early as 5 years old. The chances of that. So this is a theory that a lot of people do not like to talk about, is that some people are born with a predisposition for violence because the part of their brain that controls empathy, they're born with it being smaller. And as they get older, it doesn't develop. Can it happen from trauma? Absolutely. You can go through traumatic things and become a serial killer. But a lot of serial killers that we know for a fact, we're serial killers now. You can see their history, and they didn't have traumatic events that happened in their history. They just did it. Believe it or not, Ted Bundy came from a pretty decent family. A lot of people don't know. When he was 3 years old, he tried to kill his aunt. Did you guys know that? When he was 3 years old, Ted Bundy tried to kill his aunt. She woke up from babysitting him. She was taking a nap, and she woke up, and he had kitchen knives laid on the bed next to her, and he was climbing on the bed with one of the kitchen knives. When he was 3 years old. That tells you all you need to know about it. Some people are born with the disposition. Some serial killers are created. Some are born. Okay? Going back to psychopaths. They're, the main characters that are carrying out the executions and stuff, they're kind of having a dilemma here, because they start seeing that I don't think all these people would commit these crimes. Some of them would, because crime rates are extraordinarily low in this show. Crime is almost non-existent now because of these brain scans. Now, some people who don't show high numbers still commit crimes, but these people that are at a higher disposition of it are automatically accused already of crimes they haven't even thought about committing yet, and maybe weren't even going to commit. But because the chance was so high, they went ahead and just executed them anyhow. And that's the scary way that AI could be leading. Look at these flock cameras that have already came out. You guys might have seen this. Oklahoma and some other states have introduced flock cameras, which are great in theory. They're supposed to help a lot of human trafficking. They're supposed to help a lot of crimes that are happening, a better tracking system. But people are getting tickets in the mail for texting on their phone while they're holding a hamburger. Some people are getting, this one girl had one arm. She's driving with one hand, literally doesn't have another hand. And she got a ticket in the mail saying that she was texting on one of her hands. And she had to refute the ticket and had to go to court. She had to take time out of her daily life and go to court over something that never should have been an issue in the first place. Of course, it got dismissed and thrown out, but she had to take time off of her daily schedule to mess with something that was just total bullcrap. That one, like I said, it's called Psycho-Pass. Psychopaths. Catching criminals before they're even criminals. It's a scary world we think about with like the whole AI overlord, thing that we could be dealing with in the very near future that we might already be dealing with now. But I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Hope you guys enjoyed the anime tie-in for my anime fans out there. Maybe some of y'all, this will encourage you to go check those animes out and watch them for yourself and see if you can see those connections between, what somebody wrote about versus reality. And if you're not already following the Facebook, the TikTok, the podcast, here's all of them. Our Facebook and TikTok is called Nomads Animal Encounter. Our Spotify and Apple podcast is called Matt from Nomads. And our YouTube and YouTube podcast is called Nomads Animal Reserve. I hope to see you on one of those, Nomads Animal Encounter, Matt from Nomads, or Nomads Animal Reserve. Thank you guys for making it to the end of this. And if you're not following us already and you're watching on one of these platforms already, what are you waiting on? You sat here for way too long to not be following. If you want to see a crazy real-life conspiracy theory happening right before your eyes right now, as of July 13th, 2026, then watch this video and then go down this rabbit hole on your own, okay? Because just 2 days ago, on July 11th, Lindsey Graham died. He was a 71-year-old senator. Now, I don't care about politics. I don't care about all your political beliefs. I really, truly don't. So don't even get into that with me, period, at all. Because I'm not saying one way or the other which side I care about. What I care about is the crazy shit that is going down right now in front of us all. So Lindsey Graham just died July 11th. Do you know what he was doing July 10th? July 10th, the day before, as in the day before he died. He went to Ukraine. The whole Russia-Ukraine thing going on right now? Once again, I do not care about your thoughts on this and everything else, okay? He goes over there. The Ukraine had a startup tech company that was coming up with ways to use AI and drones to essentially make drone flying soldiers, essentially, and bombers. Lindsey Graham went over there, saw it, said back, and on TV, you can see him go, oh my gosh, the technology they have is the most advanced thing I've ever seen in the world. This will literally change the way that, warfare is going to happen, and we need to get in on this right now. The U.S. needs to partner with them immediately, and we need to be a part of this innovation and this technology because no one would ever want to be on the wrong side of this. He's making this statement on TV, and then the next day dies. What happens to that facility, you might ask? Literally hours after he left, so not even the next day, literally hours after he left that facility, it was called Skyfall. One word, Skyfall, if you want to look it up. Hours after he left, Russia bombed the place, blew it to hell, okay? That's a startup company with technology that I don't know if it was grounded anywhere else. So here's my thing. I've got a couple conspiracies on this. Side with whichever way you want to. And this is why I said I don't care about your beliefs politically, because you have to keep an open mind on why this might have happened and why this was done. One, I think Lindsey Graham was 100% killed by a government entity of some kind. Whether it was our own, whether it was Ukraine, whether it was Russia, I don't know. But somebody did it. The man supposedly had a sudden illness and it was a tear in his aorta. We know that there are syringes and shots that can be given to people to make that happen. You can induce heart attacks with a simple shot. We know this, okay? Serial killers have used it for decades at this point. All right, so get that out of the window. I don't think his death was any way natural. I do not think so at all. Okay. Second, why would they have done this? Did Russia find out about it and go, oh my gosh, we got to blow that place up? Which is plausible. Okay. But then did they also kill him? Or did the U.S. find out about this, steal the information, steal the technology, and then blow the place up to hide the evidence of what they did, right? Because you'd have to blow the place up so you don't see that everybody was, unalived. You have to say that because TikTok is real trigger happy on canceling my videos. They already canceled one of my videos that I did earlier today. So did we do it? Did we want to steal that technology for ourselves and we stole the technology out of there? Kind of like, have you ever watched the Pixar movie Big Hero 6? They fake a fire and fake an explosion just to steal the technology. Maybe. I don't know. All right. I know I tied a very serious situation into a Pixar movie. I believe they tell us the truth in pop culture literally all the time. So is that what happened? Or did Russia steal the info and then blow it up? Just like how we would have done it because they wanted the stuff. Who knows? There are so many theories on what could have happened. We just don't know what could have happened, what might have happened, what is going to come out of this. But it is wild because you can see some of this stuff in action already. You can go on the internet right now and search, drone like literally like military drones flying around and taking out people. And it is one of the craziest things I've ever seen in my entire life. Please be careful before you search that, because you will see real people really get cease to exist. I have to be careful what I say. TikTok's really trigger happy today on flag and stuff. So I am interested in to hear what you think about it. What I'm not interested in is hearing you just go into an emotional babble in the comment section. And for whatever reason, if I say any videos that have to do with Congress or senators, all I hear is people in the comments going, I love Trump or I hate Trump. I could care less either way. This has nothing to do with that, okay? I'm talking about the situation that happened. I would like to hear your theories on it in a formal, like, factual-led conversation, not an emotionally-led conversation.